welcome everyone. What a fantastic turnout for the families tonight. This year, this is our third program this year featuring legacy families from Hampshire. Tonight we have two, of course. That's probably why you're all here. The Allens and the Conroe family. With that, I'd like to introduce our presenters. We have two tonight. Jane Allen Tegtman from Hampshire. She'll be first up, and then Mr. Alan Conroe will follow. And other than that, I think that was all I really needed to cover to kick it off. Other than that, I'm going to turn it over to you, Jane.
Thank you so much.
Take it away, my dear.
Thank you. Well, this is quite an honor. Thank you for all showing up. Makes the nerves get a little more jumpy, but that's okay. And so, of course, I've been asked to come and talk about the Allen history. Now, as I start out, I do list from the great-grandpa Harvey and Elizabeth Allen and their children, but I was offered by Judy Geringer to get more information, but I chose not to do that because the story comes from what I know and what my father told me and what I remember as a child myself. So after I talk about the siblings of Harvey and Elizabeth, then of course you'll see that I wander off and talk more about Grandpa Herrmann and my Uncle Gene and my dad, because even though they weren't from the generations before, they sure were some powerful men, and I saw and learned a lot from them. So thank you for all being here. And so we'll start out with the Allen history, and I'm Jane Allen Tegtman, and I am 6th generation from Allen's Corner. My children and Ted's children, Christy, Carly, and Colby, they're 7th generation, and our grandchildren is Cassie and Caleb and Tristan, and they're 8th generation. We are not the only family, but we are one of the families in Kane County that is still on the same property that was homesteaded. So my father years ago had a sign printed, and it's above the front door of the front garage, and it says Allen's Corner, homesteaded 1835 by Zenas and Lucretia Allen, first house in Hampshire Township, Deerfield Precinct. I sure wish my dad was around because I'd like to ask him what the Deerfield Precinct meant, which I know it means something. I don't know if it meant like a certain area in Kane County, but that's what this sign says. So the Allen family came from state of Vermont with their covered wagons, and they settled on top of the hill on Allen Farm off of Briar Hill. A log cabin house was built there. The only remaining object we have from the Allen settlers is an anvil. They had a blacksmith shop in Vermont. Once they arrived, they became farmers. And years later, when Harvey Allen and Elizabeth Howe were married, they had 6 children. And they were Minnie, the oldest, John, I don't know if this is the correct birth order, but John, Bill, Ernie, Dave, and Herman. And I don't know what Minnie did for work. John, from what I understand, was a machinist and loved steam engines. And Bill, he worked at the McGraw farm off of Route 25 by Dundee. And Ernie farmed on Allen Road, and Dave farmed on Route 20 across from Allen's Corner. And then, of course, Grandpa Herrmann, he lived there at Allen's Corner, and he opened a fix-it shop. And he didn't want to have anything to do with the animals. He wanted to go over and work with towing in vehicles and fixing them. So Allen's Corner was a well-known spot to family, town people, and customers. And in 1921, Grandma Christine Thompson Allen opened the Allen's Corner restaurant, served breakfasts and homemade barbecues and homemade pie, and had ice cream too. There was a Greyhound bus stop that was at the corner of the little restaurant. Grandma was always busy serving homemade food to all the people and the bus riders too. People's cars that broke down, Grandpa Herrmann towed in. They had a lunch spot to go to also. Oris Root told me years ago that there was the first West Side drive-up window at the restaurant to go for ice cream and shakes because he said that his father took him there. I said, boy, Oris, I didn't know that. So, and then we always talk about how Hampshire is also related. Well, why I know so many Allens in town is because so many of them are my cousins. And Minnie married to Albert Switzer, then Tim Shine, and she had 2 children with Albert, Howard Switzer and Esther Peffinger. And Esther Peffinger was married to Franz Peffinger. They had 2 boys, Alan Darwin and a daughter, Phyllis Treadwell. John Allen was married to Pearl Allen. They lived at Allen's Corner. And he was a machinist and loved steam engines. And they had 1 daughter, Marjean Baisley, married to Clyde. And they had 3 children. Sandy Siegman, her children were Mike and Liz. Diane Herrmann, her children were Jeff, Kimberly, and Trevor. Of course, Trevor has been the Hampshire chief at the fire department for, did I hear maybe someone say 34 years? So that Trevor, he's just pretty amazing. And Mike Baisley, he married Susie Dexter from Hampshire, and they had 3 beautiful girls. Bill Allen was married and then divorced, had children. Jerry, he was killed in the war, and Doc and Cliff, I don't remember Doc's real first name, but, Wilbur, yeah, very good. And I don't know if they had a daughter or not. Do you know, Judy? No daughter. And they lived off of Route 72 on Briar Hill Road in a little shack. And of course, I love animals, and Uncle Bill had his favorite donkey, Buttermilk. I loved that donkey. To this day, I love donkeys. I'd get one if my daughter would let me. But anyway, Ernie, his wife was Alta, and he was a farmer, and they lived on Allen Road, west of Whitmire Road. And their children was Cy. Judy confirmed his name was Lyle. I guess I knew that but forgot. Sid, Lavelle, Cleo, Garnet, Mitzi, which her real name was Marion, Pudge, her name was Carol, and Lois, and of course Mice. I don't think I have that in the correct birth order, but they were all their children. So the grandkids, I know of them all. I know Karen O'Connor and her children, Kelly and Bobby. I know Corky. I went to school with Corky. And I know his son, Danny Allen, the best. I don't know his other children so good. Cindy Rukowski, her children, Becky and Andy. Tim Allen, Marion Grubner Hosick, Carol Grubner Rowe, Judy Geringer, her children, Paulette, Sandra Sharon, Jan Bowl, Jody, Tia, and Kelly, and Kenny Van Vliet, Dick Van Vliet, Gail Halstead, and LaBelle's Peffinger's grandkids. I knew Joe, Kurt, and Kurt's brother, David. So I know there's many more relatives, but this is Jane's recollection. So Dave, he was the farmer, and he married Vern, and they lived on Route 20 across from Allen's Corner, and they had 7 children. And David, their son, 8? Uh-oh, what did I miss? Well, I'll go through it and then you let me know.
Doris, David, Leo, Mose, Barb, Shell, and Vio.
Okay, will you listen to me and correct me where I messed up? And so they had their children, and David was 16 when he passed. Him and Uncle Gene were really good friends, and my dad said that Uncle Gene went into terrible depression because he just couldn't live life without David, and it took him a long time to get over that. And then, of course, Leo, he was a farmer and loved horses, and they lived off of Burner Road, and their children are Linda and Steve, and Jean and Donna and Tammy. And then Mose, he was a farmer and kind of a handyman. He was into delivering hay and straw, you name it. Mose could do it. And Moses' children were Julie, Dave, Lee, which they called him Neener, and Sharon and Jill. And then, of course, the stepchildren of Mose was Allison, Nanette, Guy, Greg, Gary, Voss, and then, of course, Mose and Nancy together had Abby. And then Doris, I didn't know her too well, but I know of the daughter of Doris because she lived in Marengo, and her husband owned the company Stark, and they had cement mixers, and they had flatbed trailers. I see them go by Allen's Corner all the time, and they told me that that was Doris's daughter Doreen's husband. I think his name's Kevin. And then, of course, I got a little mixed up here because Doris had 3 boys, and maybe you can help me clarify this. I have Keith, Smoke, and Billy Maynard. Is that correct?
Yep.
What was Smoke's real name?
Earl Cooper.
Earl. And Billy Maynard, if Hampshire isn't tied in enough being related, Billy Maynard was married to Patty Seiler, who was Ambrose and Rita Seiler's daughter. And poor Billy, he just passed not long ago, and he was a dear friend. We really enjoyed Billy. And then, of course, there was Barbara and Shelby. I didn't know those girls too well. I know my mom went to school with Barbara, but I didn't know them. And then Vi, of course, I know Vi. She's been our neighbor on Allen Road for years. And they used to live, her and Fritz used to live on Allen Road by North State Street. And her children were Scott and Donnie Gesselman. And the stepkids, the girls were Pam, Barb, and Stacy. So Herrmann, the baby, which was my grandpa, he lived at Allen's Corner, and he had 2 sons, him and my grandma, Christine, and their names were Gene and Jack. Uncle Gene was married to Phyllis Scadding from Hampshire, and they had 1 daughter, Susan, and she had 1 son, Jeff Stuhler. And then Jack, of course, was married to my mother, Marita Wiesman, and had me. And then Ted and I had 3 children, Christy, Carly, and Colby. And so Grandpa Herrmann married Grandma Christine Thompson. The Thompson farm was on Big Timber Road and Woodmire Road. And Christine's siblings were Walter, Howard, Bob, Tom, Louise Iverson from Elburn, Helen Canese from Hampshire, who was my bus driver, so I really had to behave, and Grace Hubmeyer, and they lived on Walker Road, and her daughter is Colleen Thorough. She's married to Bob Thorough Jr., and Colleen had 2 brothers, Tom and Gary. So Grandma Christine attended college at Northern Illinois University in DeKalb to become a school teacher. Taught at the Bean School off of Big Timber Road. Grandpa Herrmann was raised at Allen's Corner, helped with the farming, and raised a pet crow. And he loved this crow. It would fly every day to his bedroom, and he fussed over that crow. And one day he came home, and the crow was gone. I think his mother and father eliminated the crow. But anyway, Grandpa Herrmann also loved to raise skunks. And yeah, for pets, he said, Janie, they were the nicest little pet. And he would de-skunk them, and he said they were the best. So, and I had a really awesome picture, but of course couldn't find it with him and his skunks. When Grandpa was young, one lady came to visit one time, to visit Lizzie, and they said, Lizzie, you have such a cute baby. Well, Grandpa Herrmann was the baby, and he didn't like being called a baby, so he kicked her in the shins. And my father told me that story many times, so I don't know why that tripped my father's trigger, but he sure did like that story. There was a double cow barn for milking 2 herds. Liz and Harvey had a dairy, and her twin sister Lena, who was married to Mr. Gustafson, they had a herd. Liz and Lena's brother, Fred Howe, he lived off of Woodmire Road, and that Bill Howe's grandpa was Walter Howe. So I'm also related to Bill Howe. So that's pretty cool. He was in my class. He was in my class too. And then Lena. Now this is what they told me. Lena was Les Gustafson's mom. Is that correct, Steve?
No.
No.
Quadrita.
Wadrita
Yeah.
was,
Lena was the next one back.
okay.
Lena was my grandmother, I think Lena was my great
Oh,
grandmother.
so, okay, I got that a little mixed up, sorry. But anyway, then, David and Leo and Mose and Jean and Jack Allen, and then Allen and Darwin Peppinger, they would go swim at Fred House Pond on Woodmire Road when they were young boys. They used to have a great time. Jean finished school through 9th grade. Jack went to school through 6th grade. Grandma Christine probably was not happy being a school teacher. Grandpa Herrmann wanted to start his fix-it shop across from Allen's farm. He did labors in the shop. He worked on wrecked cars and repaired them, but he didn't repair them with Bondo, he repaired them with lead. That's what they did back then. And he also was a great taxidermist. When they'd go on their big hunt trips, he'd come back and he'd stuff a goat, a mountain goat, he'd stuff moose. The moose head used to hang in the diner years ago. And he stuffed elk, and he stuffed deer. I mean, he just loved it all. He really was a jack of all trades, that Grandpa Herrmann. And Herrmann, Jean, and Jack, and many of the men in the surrounding area, they would go on big hunt trips once a year in the fall to either Wyoming, Montana, and Idaho. And they really enjoyed themselves. Each of them had a leather coat made out of the deer hides, and I was lucky to get one too. So I brought my coat for an object lesson. One time when I was, 14, 15, and we all loaded up and we went to Wisconsin, and they took the deer hides in it and they made me a coat. So that coat, it not only is for warmth, but it reminds me a lot of all my family that I really love. And the towing business got busier, and Jean and Jack helped at young ages on. Big semi-truck wrecks and cars all over Kane and McHenry County. And through the years, they towed Jim Thompson, the ex-governor, his limo on I-90, and Jim was still there, so boy, our guys came home and carried on about how they met the governor on I-90. And we also towed in Leroy Van Dyke's bus. He was a country music singer, and he was known for the song The Auctioneer in 1956, and then also, which we all probably know this song, Walk On By, and that was in 1961. So yeah, we repaired Leroy's bus. And then we also towed Kenny Chesney's bird bus. They had been at Rockford and had a concert, and they were all leaving to go to the next gig, and luckily no one was really on this bus, but the guitars and the drums and all of that was on there. So they did lose a lot of their things that they needed to play all that awesome music. And so our men met people from all walks of life. Grandma Christine started the Allen's Corner restaurant in 1921. Served homemade food, it was a booming business. But after some years passed, Grandma had to go to Allen's towing office and help do books there. Christy and Jake ran the diner. Christy's our oldest daughter, and her husband Jake. They ran the diner for 6 years, and she made it through to celebrate the 100th year anniversary. So she was very proud of that, and we were all very proud for her and Jake. Gina Edge now runs the Allen's Diner. She's been there going on 5 years, and she does a great job and serves very good homemade food. So it can't lose any weight at Allen's Corner. Because it's all pretty tasty. In 1958, when the tollway opened, Allen's Wreckers were in the grand opening parade. I was 5. I rode on the roof of the wrecker by the red light. Now, that doesn't sound like a big deal, but anybody with wreckers, you're not allowed, a wrecker is not allowed to have a red light anymore. They switched it to amber years ago. But back then, when I was little, that light was red. And Pete Harrop, he worked for us at Allen's and did a hired man, and he watched over me so I didn't fall off the roof. And then my cousin Susan, she rode in front in the wrecker with my Grandpa Herrmann, and she was 10. Ethan Allen, Green Mountain Boys, Jack claimed we were related to them. Jack had that saying painted on our wreckers. In 1937, Harvey and Elizabeth's house burned down. Grandma Elizabeth hung clothes by the burning fire for heat and caught the house on fire. Darwin Peppinger was in the back bedroom, about 6 months old, but they got him out in time. The Allen family liked to be in control and were stubborn. I just can't imagine. So I asked one of our family members, I said, was that learned behavior or was that in the genes? And he said, Jane, I think it's in the genes. So in 1957 was the first threshing bee steam show on the Allen farm. And I remember I got to ride with Uncle Bill down to the threshing bee. His donkey buttermilk pulled this little cart, and I rode down with him. And then my cousin Susan, she rode her pony, Rocky, and she was 10, and she got to go down and have a good time. So we were really blessed to be able to enjoy that. And to this day, I always try to make it to the threshing bee in Sycamore because it brings back great memories. Well, then in 1958, Elizabeth Allen, her son John Allen, and then Grandma Christine Allen, they died. And Liz, from what I understand, had a heart attack. And John had a heart attack. Grandpa Herrmann was visiting with him at John's little garage. He was sitting on a stool, and as Grandpa was visiting with him, he fell off the stool and he passed away. And then Grandma Christine, my grandma, she was 53 and passed of melanoma cancer. My mom told me there was a special survey run in Hampshire years ago because so many cancer deaths took place in Hampshire. Many heart attacks in the Allen family too. That makes me a little nervous because the doctor tells me that my heart's a little fluttery and that I have AFib, so I'm like, oh boy, that's me. Allen family married Chaminade Indian. Now, I'm thinking it's Patience. That's what Father told me, that's who that was. And Darwin Peppinger told me he was 164th Indian. He lives out in Forsyth, Montana, east of Billings. I talk to him about once a month. Lake Geneva is still near to go. Indians were on the Allen farm. Many arrowheads have been found. And Jack also told me there was a sacred Indian mound behind Mylan Duhai's property. Now, whether that's true or not, I don't know. And I don't know if Mylan is here. I don't see him. But I would ask Mylan because I don't know if that story true or not. But my father thought that was how it was. So many Hampshire men worked at Allen's Towing. Oh boy, here we go. There's quite a list. And Ted, of course, my dear husband, of 53 years, and our son Colby, who helps mostly run the shop, and now Ted is just a worker for Colby, but that's okay. And Jeff Stuhler, Ed Stuhler, Bob Stuhler, Dean Rodebeck, George Roberts, Pete Harriff, Brian and Jeff Conkey, Gary and Greg Boss, Billy Cunningham, Dave Beatty, Randy and Jimmy Taylor, Jim Farner, Al Marzinkowski, Matthew Johnson, Les Peterson. I saw Les walk in, so I remembered you, Les, when you were a young man. And you were taking orders from my father, and I'm like, oh boy, here we go. You did very good, and God bless you, Les. You were a good worker. And then we had Paul Whitmire, and we had Mike Tegtman, Greg Hank, Jane Christie, Carly Tegtman, Rob Christie, Roger Gershevsky, Ed Zellner, Sparky Holtz, Farmer Holtz, Pat and Denny Orman, Billy Homuth, and of course, my mother and Aunt Phyllis Allen and Susan Stuhler was also working in the office. Oh yeah, John Bull. Thank you. John Bull. John Bull. Well, yeah, Don and John. Yeah. No shame on me. I forgot those names. Thank you, Judy. I made a mistake. I got the ones. Thank you. And so, as you can tell, we had many Hampshire men through the years that worked there. And I'll tell you, Weren't they lucky? They went to the school of hard knocks. So I was blessed to be raised at Allen's Corner. I drove junk Dodge DeSoto car to the creek and back. All the neighbor kids, 11 of us, would load up and take the shop dog Bozo with us, and he would have to hop into the pond and get all wet and then hop back in the car with all of us. That was not our favorite, but you know, how you gonna stop him? We rode our ponies and our bikes all around Allen's Corner. We swam in our pools, and we were so lucky. The 6 Harrop kids, the 3 DeFreitas girls, and Susan and I. Now here comes some more stories for you. So, oh boy, you know, I don't want to completely go over my time limit. So the Doty Cemetery boulder. I don't know if any of you have been on Allen Road and saw the big boulder. And years ago, Billy Howe and Jim O'Connor were on the cemetery board, and they came to my dad, if I have this story right now, and they asked my dad if they had a boulder or a rock or something to make for the Doty Cemetery little, where you put your name on there. And my father said, yep, know right where it's at. It's right across from where Vi Bishop lives. And they took him over and showed him, oh yeah, Billy and Jim O'Connor thought it was awesome. So yeah, our guys delivered it up to the cemetery. They called, I think, the lady from Sycamore or whoever they used to engrave on the stone. So the boulder. So one day I saw Orr's roof, and he says to me, Janie, that boulder that's out there, that landmark, he said, who shaved that front off? I said, God. And he said, no, you misunderstood me. I'm talking about the boulder up there, and it's nice and flat, and it's beautiful, and the work was beautiful. Who did it? I said, God. I said, that's how it was. It was that way in the field when my dad and the men brought it up here. So, yeah, he thought that was pretty amazing. So then, of course, here we go. We're going to talk about this big red-orange 4-prong hook that sits in the front of Allen's garage. It weighs 38,000 pounds. And if anybody knows my dad, he liked iron, and it was even better if it was heavy, and bigger the better, and if it wasn't red, he painted it red. So he towed, our men towed a lot of things to Packer Engineering, which used to be in Schaumburg, now is in Naperville, and they investigate why bad accidents happen, whether it's machinery or a truck or whatever. Well, Father went in there one day, he saw this huge hook, which it looks very tiny here. He saw this huge hook in there, and he said to the man, how would I ever be able to acquire that hook? Would it ever be for sale? Oh, Mr. Allen, it's in a lawsuit. This is an ocean-going crane, and it looks very tiny, but that little thing there is kind of faded. This is the picture they used in the court when they made the settlement. They gave this picture to my dad. So they said, you know, Mr. Allen, it broke, this platform fell, we heard it took 12 men's lives, and so it's in a big lawsuit. Whenever it comes where that's settled, and if they want to get rid of it, we'll call you. 8 years later, telephone rings, my father answers it. Yeah, Mr. Allen, that hook's ready to go. If you want to come to Houston, Texas. Well, it happened in Houston, Texas, the accident, but they shipped it to Packer Engineering to investigate it. They wanted to see if it was forged improperly at England or if the men had it rigged wrong. Well, come to find out, they did sue the company in England. They said it was forged wrong. Well, Father did not agree with that. He said, I've monkeyed with iron my whole life, and I think it was rigged wrong. But, you know, they're not going to listen to me because I don't have any degree. So anyway, they said, Mr. Allen, they're done with the lawsuit, and if you come to Houston and you pick it up, we'll have you sign some paperwork that you got it, and we need $1 for a transaction fee.
There we go.
My father, you never saw my father run and get ready, so he hurried and scurried and got the truck and trailer ready, and off to Houston he went. So he brought this big hook home, and it sat around for about 8 years, and then he made a big, huge A stand, which sits out in front of the front garage by the diner, And Colby is 42. When Colby was 10, they set it up. So it's been there for 32 years. And actually it's so heavy it's starting to lean back into our garage. And I don't know, I guess you guys might have to fix that one. But anyway, so yeah, that's the story on the hook. And I guess I should have a plaque put on it because many people think it's a ship anchor. And when you drive by, it kind of does look like that. But no, it's a four-pronged, ocean-going crane hook. It looks kind of small there, but when you drive by, it is pretty big. So when I was 10, Jack and I would go, one time I went to Lake in the Hills with him in the wrecker to pull out a cement mixer out of a basement. And the front of the wrecker came off the ground, and my dad got back in the wrecker, and I said, oh my goodness, Father, something's wrong. No, it's all okay. Just stay in the wrecker. You won't get hurt. But yeah, this is what happens. That cement mixer's loaded. Gotta get it out there. So yeah, that was, oh boy, I never forgot that. That was like it happened yesterday. And then when I was 12, one day the phone rang, and I rode with my dad up in the wrecker to Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. And to set up an overturned semi-truck livestock trailer rolled over with Elmer Strack from Sycamore, his pigs, hogs, huge hogs. And so Father said, now when we get there, you can't get out of the wrecker. You have to stay in the wrecker because I don't want anything to happen to you. There was pigs running all over Lake Geneva. And I watched all these farmer men. They had been called to come in with their gates to help surround them. And by golly, they got them all lined up. Well, of course, some poor pigs, they lost their life in the trailer. So the nice farmer men that caught the pigs, they took them to their farms, waited for Mr. Elmer Strack to come and get them. And then we brought the tractor trailer home with some of the deceased pigs. But boy, I'll never forget that. Every time I go around that curve at Lake Geneva, I'm like, oh boy, I remember being here. Susan and I rode with Grandpa Herrmann to Crystal Lake one time, taking a car up there when we were young. And we came upon a drunk driver. Oh my goodness, my grandpa had zero tolerance for people that were driving drunk. So, next thing you know, Grandpa's pulling up to this car and giving him a little nudge with the wrecker. And I'm like, Grandpa, what are you doing? And he said, you just watch what I'm doing. Oh yeah, of course, next thing you know, the drunk driver pulled over. And Grandpa got out of the wrecker, went over to the car. I can still see him do it. He reached in the window, he yanked the keys out of the ignition, and he pitched them as hard as he could get them out in the field. So when he got back in the wrecker, I said, Grandpa, aren't you going to get in trouble for doing that? Nope, he said that man had no business being on the road, and I took care of that. So yeah, that was another story to remember. So this story is kind of amazing, and oh boy, am I talking too long, Bill? Where's Bill?
Well, you're fine.
Okay, good. So there was a man west of Rockford out in the country, and he was driving by years ago, going to St. Charles to get dog food. Now, why would you come from Rockford out in the country to go to St. Charles to buy dog food? I don't know, but that's big to me. And he said, ma'am, he said, would it be okay if I check behind this house over there? I said, yeah, that's my dad's house. He said, there's 4 trucks there that are camouflage trucks. And he said, if I could go look at them. I said, sure, go ahead. So he came back up and he said, ma'am, you're not going to believe this. But he said, I personally drove that truck for the Army in Greenland. And he said I had to paint it green and camouflage it. And I took care of it. I changed the oils, made sure the tires worked. And then when we were done in Greenland, it went to Saudi Arabia. And I had to paint it and camouflage it there, and I took care of it. But then when it was time for me to come home, of course, you know, I said goodbye to the truck, and off he went. Well, the story gets, like I say, it's got to be all directed from the good Lord, because the next thing you know, this man from Cleveland, Tennessee, he was like my father. He liked all that. I shouldn't say junk, but iron, junk. Yeah, you know. Anyway, they were driven by Elm's Corner, you know, a lot of iron there. And so, this man from Cleveland, Tennessee, these trucks were shipped over to the U.S. soils back from the service, And this man was like my dad. He'd get these papers, he saw these things were for sale. Oh yeah, he bought 4 of them, and he bought some of them dollies, brought them back to Cleveland, Tennessee, put them in a magazine or a calendar or a newspaper for sale. And guess who got that paper? Jane Allen. So, next thing you know, him and a couple others went down to Cleveland, Tennessee. They brought back 4 of these trucks and these dollies, and they sat them in my dad's backyard. I don't know if you wanted to hug them or if you wanted to look at them, I don't know. But anyway, this man that stopped to look at that truck, he said, ma'am, my name is in the bottom of the windshield of this truck. So he said, I'm not pulling your leg. It really was mine and Sirk's. He said, could I buy it? I said, well, that's probably not going to happen because my father didn't get rid of any of his irons. So, but I said, you know what, I'll go ask him. So I went and asked him, no, not for sale. So I said, sir, give me your name and your number and your address, and if something ever happens where I can get rid of the truck, I will be sure to get a hold of you. Well, then a few years later, God called my dad and my uncle home. So I said, Ted, I said, can we take that truck and give it to that man up west of Rockford out in the country? And he goes, it's your truck, Janie, whatever you want to do. You're the one that inherited it. So Ted was very nice, and he loaded it up on a tractor trailer, and we hauled it up there, and it was in, Father passed in December of '06, and we did this in April. So we get there, and the man was there so happy, like a kid with a new toy. And Ted said, yeah, get in it and take it off the trailer. And so it was a wonderful thing. And so when I went to go do this, I called my accountant first because my dad's estate wasn't settled. And I said, what should I do? He said, have him sign a piece of paper, here we go again, and collect a $10 check. I said, I don't want the money for this truck. This man deserves this truck. And I never really had any of my immediate family go to service, but if this man did all that with his truck, it's his. And I think my dad paid $8,000 for it, but it's okay, it was his. So, yeah, we did our duty and we gave this man his truck, and I felt really good in my heart that I did a nice thing. So that was one little part of that story. And then my leather jacket is made from the deer hides from the hunt trips. So I brought it for an object lesson. I was like 14 or 15. We ran for Herrmann, and about 5 of us went up and they measured me up for my deer hide leather coat. In my 7th, 8th grade summer, we went to Arctic Circle. We flew in there with my mom and dad and caught 22-pound lake trouts. I have a picture up here. And they looked like sharks coming up to this little boat. And I don't know how my father decided that we had to go to Arctic Circle to go do this fishing, but it was quite amazing. And he liked it so much, we went back my 8th grade summer too. So, yeah, I really I saw a lot of Indian guides, and I slept in cabins that never got dark because, you know, you're way up there and the sun never sets. So that was pretty amazing and a real tribute to get to go there. And then on my 9th grade summer, we drove to Alaska in the pickup with a camper, and I got to take my little neighbor kid with me, friend, Pam Harrell, and we rode all that way in the back of that camper. We were on the Alaskan Highway, so when people talk about the Alaskan Highway, I know all about the Alaskan Highway. I rode in the back, I ate all the dust that those big machines make when they're making the road, and so yeah, and when we were on our way home, all we heard about was Richard Speck when he had taken those nurses' lives from Paul Harvey. Paul Harvey would come on and give us an update. So that was my memories of going to Alaska. And then Grandpa Herrmann loaned a car to a family in Canada. They wrecked their car. They had a family trip planned. Grandpa said, take my car when you do your trip. Go back to Canada, and when I get your car repaired, I'll call you, I'll meet you, we'll swap cars, and I'll get my car back from you. Oh yeah, that all happened, and I thought, wow, you don't do that nowadays, but that was very nice of Grandpa. And then I met a girl when we were in Salmon, Idaho, on that trip on my 9th grade summer, and Father's friend, believe it or not, was the sheriff in town, and of course it was a little town like Hampshire, maybe 1,000 people. And sheriff wasn't a terrible big deal, but he thought it was. So he said, you know what, since you're visiting, let's go up into the mountains. I'm gonna take you to an Indian reservation, and you can see how the Indians live. And they really did, just like you watch the Westerns. There was the teepees, and there was the big fires, and they're all the Indians are running around in their leathers. And this matriarch, her name was Fanny, and she was in her 90s, and this cute little girl was running along beside her. I presume it was her great granddaughter. So years later, my dad's friend called my dad and said, you know, U.S. Treasury is making a new coin, and it's going to be the dollar Sacagawea coin. And when you see the girl's face on the coin, it's that little girl that I introduced you to when we went up to the Indians reservation in the hills of Salmon, Idaho. I mean, I thought I was almost near heaven because the hills were pretty big. And then you see the Indians, but they were all very kind. So yes, I personally got to meet that little girl they used her as a silhouette to put on the coin. And then 2 days after 9/11, Ted and Farmer Holtz and Tiny Greer and Paul Hosick, they took a big generator out to New York after the 9/11 because they didn't have any power. And it came from AG Communications out of Genoa. So they saw flags, they saw smoke smoldering, they saw all kinds of stuff. But I was very proud of our men, and especially you, Ted.
Katie's always been proud of you, Ted.
Yeah. Thanks, Gus. When Jack, he was 74 and Jean was 79, in December of 2006, they passed. 5 days apart. We had a wake and funeral at the Allen's Big Red Building. The men weren't churchgoers but believed in a higher power. I just knew they had to go out together. The men had never been separated, only on vacations or sickness. They made a statement when they departed this earth. Jack is tinkering with iron in heaven, and Uncle Gene is probably with God's animals in heaven or working in a machine shop, figuring out what part goes where. Grandpa Herrmann, Uncle Gene, and my dad Jack, they were great, powerful men to me, and such hard-working men. And as the precious Allen farm goes, Uncle Sam became our best friend. We had to sell the farm to settle Jack's estate. We were sad to depart from the Allen farm, but a very nice couple, Steve and Veronica Berglund, purchased the property and runs their Midwest company's business there. And we thank them very much because they bailed Ted and I out of a real big mess. And so thanks to Steve and Veronica. They're very nice people, and their family is just as nice. We love their family. And the daughter, Jamie, is here with her husband and her 6 children, so it's just so nice to have them here. So I thank you all for letting me share my stories about the Allens and Allen's Corner, and I hope that you enjoyed what I had to share. Thank you.